I've done this fly as it might have been done 80 years ago or so. Longer tail, neck hackle, longer proportions generally. This is the way they were tied back then, and they worked just great. I still fish this fly to this day, and it works as well as it ever did. I see a lot of flies in fly shops, a lot of Light Cahills that are anywhere from light cream to white. But in the real world, in the wild, I've seen probably hundreds of Light Cahills, all of which were tan. The thread I'm using here is Uni 8/0 Light Cahill. It's yellow. I don't get it. Light Cahills are tan unless you live someplace where I've never fished, which is entirely possible. Anyway, the tail I'm using here is a whiting tailing pack light ginger, and I'll use light ginger hackle too. This is a wood duck flank feather that I'll use to make up the wings, and notice it's relatively flat on top and that I've stripped off any of the shorter fibers on either side. This will really help when you fold it and make up the wing, as I'm mounting here. It keeps all the tips even. Don't lose sleep if the feather's not perfect, though. If you've only got real small wood duck feathers, take two and put them back to back after stripping them out really well, and that'll work fine as well. Tie it in, and normally, when I don't have a camera in the way, I'll just take three straight cuts, going down the hook shank towards the tail to get the taper I want. In this case, I couldn't do that, but that's how I would normally do it. It's much easier than trying to angle your scissors and avoid cutting the tail off if you've tied that in first. This is actual red fox fur, and cut off a clump and strip out all the guard hairs first thing, just as I just did here. And then use as little as possible to dub this. And you notice right away I started using too much. You want to use just a little tiny bit of fluff. I'm sure if I was tying this fly for production, I'd be using superfine dubbing, Light Cahill, which, by the way, is also too light in color, but those flies work fine. I fish them all the time. It's fun and kind of a challenge to see how fine you can make the body with real fur. You know, if you do the thing where you grind up the fur in the coffee grinder, be sure to get rid of the guard hairs before you do that. And then once you grind it up, you'll find that some really fine powdery kind of stuff will collect on the top of the grinder, on the inside of the top. Static electricity will kind of keep it on there. Use that. Don't use anything else. Just use that ultra fine stuff at the top of the grinder when you're done. Some people are never happy. I probably should have left well enough alone, but just seemed like a little too much dubbing there to me. this point, grab the wings, pull them back, and post them up. Be sure to take some turns down towards the eye as well. Don't just leave a big thread dam right in front of the clump of wood duck. Divide the strands up into 2 wings and take 3 diagonal turns up the near wing while holding it in place, and 1 turn around the back of both wings. Then hold the far wing in place where you ultimately want it and take 3 turns up it, this time going back to front. Take a few more turns to post the wing up dead straight. And at this point, let's see, it looks like my hook has gotten pulled out of the vise. So I'll just redo it here. Sometimes I don't know my own strength. This is light ginger hackle. Always leave a bit of bare stem when you tie in the hackle. Just a little bit to get the turns started cleanly. Cut off the stem and bind it down in front of the wing as well as behind it. That's why it's always nice to have a nice long stem when you tie the hackle in. And now just took a few turns to even up the so I don't have an abrupt taper on towards the head. And I want a nice flat surface to wind the hackle. I can't decide whether to use 4 turns behind or 3. I don't know if I have room for 4. But just looking at it, I really want 4 behind there. That way my first turn in front will be right up against the wing. Take a couple more turns. Go right to the edge of the thread. Keep in mind it's a catskill fly, so we want to leave a little space at the front always. Tie off with 3 turns of thread, holding the wing sort of forward, and then try to just cut it and not leave any strays. Take 3 or 4 turns back towards the hackle, and that now we're ready for the whip finish. I'm just going to take 3 turns. Found I've got one stray. Now take the flat blade of your scissors. Get in there close. Hold the thread under tension and cut it off. And here's the finished fly. I had a beautiful day a few years ago on the north branch of the Saranac with the Light Cahills. They were out, and I found a little pool with a big rock in the middle of it. I knew looked good, and sure enough, brook trout started rising around it, small brookies, and I had a field day. It's a wonderful fly. I've fished it since the 60s.